Hello, everybody who has joined me. Just bear with me. We've got a few more people joining as we speak, and then we will get started on tonight's webinar. For anyone that's logged in at the moment, we will be sending out a copy of this after. It's probably tomorrow morning. So if there's anything you miss on here, we will send you out a copy of that webinar as well. So just bear with me 2 seconds. Right, okay, let's make a start then. And there's plenty to get through today. So as I say, thank you for joining us on tonight's webinar, which is all about the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. And as we would all know, at the beginning of April, the Prime Minister here in Spain announced that the Golden Visa will be withdrawn for Spain, or at least that's what the newspapers reported. In terms of it being a withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa is yet to be seen, but there's certainly going to be changes to the Spanish Golden Visa, which I will tell you more about in today's webinar, what we know so far, what we don't know, what we think will happen, whether there's time still available, what would be the alternatives. Well, we'll go through all of that today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Anybody watching this, obviously, we go through this on a relatively high level. We give as much information as we can. But if you want to book a personal consultation, it's completely free. You can use that QR code at the top. If you scan that with your phone, it should allow you to book yourself directly into my diary. I appreciate a lot of people here are watching from outside of Spain. Therefore, the time difference might make it difficult for you to slot yourself in my diary at the times you want. In which case, it's no problem. I can do out-of-hours appointments for myself to make it as a decent time for yourself. So if you're in America, Canada, or Australia, wherever that may be. So if that's the case, you've got my email down there, which is sam.daines@holbornassets.com. So make a note of that. Drop me an email. I'm more than happy to book in a free consultation, talk about your individual situation and how we can potentially help you. You've also got my telephone number there, which is 447969059122. That's also WhatsApp as well. If you put that into your phone, very good way of communicating nowadays. It is a UK number. Just to make it clear, I actually am based here in Spain, as you can probably see from the sunshine in the background. But I do have a UK phone, so feel free to contact me on that. As I say, my name's Sam Daines. I'm a senior wealth manager here at Holborn Assets, and I specialize in the Spanish Golden Visa. And as we know, the Spanish Golden Visa is huge headline at the moment due to the announcement at the beginning of April. I've been doing these webinars now for well over a year. We knew it was coming, but we didn't know exactly when it would come. And then, of course, it sort of came out the blue. And this very much follows on from what happened to the Portugal Golden Visa last year. There was an announcement towards the beginning of the year that property would be withdrawn as being an option for the Portuguese Golden Visa. And it took a while for that to actually go through the whole process. And then eventually, towards the end of last year, that was withdrawn. So if you are getting a Golden Visa through Portugal, you can no longer use property. Now, we're thinking that's similar to what's going to happen in Spain, but we don't know yet. And as I say, we'll come on to that. So with no further ado, let's get into the webinar today and what we're going to go through. So here's a brief agenda of what we're looking to do today. First of all, I just want to tell you a little bit about Holborn Pass. So just a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we can help people who are looking to get a golden visa. Now, that's not just with Spain. We do golden visas all over the globe. So whether that's the USA, Spain, Portugal, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, anywhere you can think that there's a golden visa scheme, or certainly all the main ones, we're able to help. Dubai as well, another popular one, Greece, Malta. But I actually live here in Spain, and I specialize in Spanish golden visa itself. So we'll tell you a little bit about Holborn Assets and about Holborn Pass and how we can help you. Then we're going to talk about the changes to the Spanish Golden Visa. Obviously, there's a lot that happens in the news, people saying that changes are going to happen. But actually, what do we know so far? What will these changes actually be, and how will they affect you? And is it still possible, which is a big question, to get the Spanish Golden Visa? So we will cover that. We'll talk a bit about residency by investment. Now, the reason I put that in is that for you that don't are not aware, there is a difference between residency by investment and citizenship by investment. The residency by investment is really what the Spanish golden visa is, but it can lead to citizenship, which I'll talk about, and just what the difference is and what benefits each one gives you. So I'll chat through that. We'll talk about the Spanish Golden Visa program. So what are the process and the benefits of the Spanish Golden Visa? And there are a lot. Obviously, Spain is a lovely place to live, but as a country, what will this give you as a benefit when you're going for the Spanish Golden Visa? So we'll talk a little bit about that. We give you some real estate options that are still available if you're looking to apply, so how you can actually do that. So I'll go through some options that we have, and then we'll go through questions and answers. Now, there's a lot to get through, so I'll do as many questions as I can. We had some questions submitted before the webinar, so I'll do my best to answer them as well. Any individual questions, obviously feel free to email me. The email will come up again at the end. And as I say, we will send a copy of this webinar out to you, and send me any questions. Have a consultation with me and we can talk through your individual situation and help you get the golden visa should you so wish. We'll certainly answer any questions that you have on that. So that's today's agenda. So let's start off by talking a little bit about Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass. Now, as you see, there's two different names there. Now, Holborn Assets, we are essentially a global wealth management firm. We were established way back in 1998, so around 26 years ago. We're a British family firm. We still are a British family firm, but we've now really grown in size. We've got well over 500 employees. We're located all around the world. So we've got offices in Spain, in Portugal, in the UK, in Greece, in South Africa, in Dubai, many other offices positioned all over the globe. And the idea of that is that we're able to provide financial advice to our clients wherever they are. So we're fully regulated. All advisors such as myself are all fully qualified to give advice, and we're fully regulated in all the jurisdictions that we operate. Now, the idea of this was to help people, if they move somewhere, to actually give them qualified and regulated financial advice. But the way the world is now, people move around. So people move from one country to another. And any of you that's had that situation will realize that actually when that happens, it's hard to continue to have your existing financial advisor because the new jurisdiction means that they won't be regulated to advise you. That's not how we work. We actually have advisors positioned all over the globe and that we can actually help you wherever you move. So anybody looking to move to Spain through the Golden Visa program, I actually live here in Spain. I'm a qualified financial advisor, regulated in Spain to give financial advice. So I can actually help you once you move here. But not only Spain, wherever you decide to move. Now, we've got 20 international offices positioned all around the world, and one here in Spain, which is in the Malaga region. So any of you know Spain, that's right down the south, and that's the office that I work in. I actually live in Sotogrande, so I'm about 40 minutes from our office. We've got, as a company, around 25,000 clients. So we're a very big wealth management company. And just a bit of background, as I mentioned before, I live here in Spain. I've lived here for around 6 years now. I am a resident here in Spain, so I've been through the process myself. I know what it involves. I know the difficulties that happen when you move to Spain. Spain is a beautiful country, but it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to navigate the system here and to get all the paperwork and all the things you need to get done. Spain is very much mañana, a very laid-back lifestyle, which is why it's fantastic to live here. But obviously, it does create some issues sometimes when you're trying to get things done. So I've been here 6 years. As I say, my background is in financial advice. I worked for HSBC in the UK along with Nationwide Building Society, and I've been doing financial advice for around 24 years now. The last 6 years since being here in Spain, I've really concentrated on the Spanish Golden Visa and to help people achieve that. Now, how this backs into really Holborn Pass is around 6 years ago, being such a large company with so many clients, we constantly were having people asking us, about the idea of actually having an investment in order to get them the rights to live and to move around, particularly Europe, but other parts of the world as well. So it made sense for us as a wealth management firm to create Holborn Pass. And at Holborn Pass, we look at investments as a way for people to get a golden visa. And as I mentioned, that's not just in Spain. We do all the different golden visa programs. But we really, being a wealth management firm, first and foremost, we look at the investment being the priority. So it's not just about getting somebody a golden visa and the best way to do that. It's to get the best possible investment and to provide all the backup that someone needs to get that golden visa. But really importantly, investment is the priority. So anything that we look at for our clients is with that in mind. Now, in terms of the golden visa itself, we've done well in excess now of 1,000 applicants that have been processed, and we have a 100% success rate. So everybody that has used us to get their golden visa has been accepted. We've had no declines. We know how to get cases through. We have a back office staff here, our admin team, who are excellent in knowing what needs to be done to get these applications through. And people will know this. If you're looking at a golden visa, quite often you want to be tagging on your family members, whether that's your parents or your spouse or your children. So obviously to do that, there are all sorts of paperwork that's needed, but we know how to do that. So we have a 100% success rate. As a company, we are rated excellent on Trustpilot. We've won numerous industry awards, so people using us should feel very sort of safe and secure in who we are and what we do. So that is a bit of a background in terms of Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass, and hopefully we'll understand a little bit more of why we are here trying to help you. But as mentioned, I am here in Spain. This is my speciality here in Spain. So what we do now is cover a little bit about what are the changes. What do we know about the Spanish golden visa? Well, back in April, Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, essentially announced measures to eliminate the golden visa program. And really, this is based upon the effect that it's believed this is having on housing prices here in Spain. Now, it is important to mention at this point, this was back in April, this was announced. So far, nothing has changed. It's business as usual. So anybody still looking to apply can still do that. We still have time to get applications through. But as you can imagine, every day that passes, we run a little bit shorter on time. Now, we've got a lot of experience as a company because last year the Portugal Golden Visa program changed and we continue to put business through. So we know how long this is going to take to get implemented, particularly here in Spain, because it does take quite a long time to get things through all the channels it needs to go through. So we still have time. Now, it's important to note here, and this is, again, we don't want to get too much into the political situation. But obviously, one of the reasons, or the main reason that the government decided to look at the golden visa program was the perceived effect on house prices. But when you drill down into the statistics of this, and we look at how many transactions happened last year, against the backdrop of the 586,000 transactions that happened the same year, even if you look at the certain percentage were for golden visas. So there was 3,273 golden visas issued. And if all of them were against the backdrop of housing transactions, there's only around 0.5% of the market of these transactions were linked to a golden visa. So by eliminating property as part of the golden visa program, it's really dubious as to whether this will really have an effect on house prices. And this is why I think when it was announced back in April, it was a little bit of a political message, really, for the government to be seen to be doing something rather than it having any material backing. Again, people could argue the point on this, but when you're looking at 0.5% of the transactions linked to a golden visa, I'd even argue some people argue it's as low as 0.25%, which means any changes, whatever they may be moving forward, is unlikely to have an effect on house prices. The reason I say that is that this is partly, I think, why it's taking a fair amount of time to get anything implemented, is because I think it was more of a headline announcement rather than something that was desperately, they were desperately looking to change. But as of today, like I say, no formal proposals for any modifications have been submitted. It's merely being looked at, and it is stated that the Golden Visa program will be eliminated or at least changed. Now, it's very important to be aware that the Spanish Golden Visa program has been around since 2013. So we're talking 11 years now, this scheme's been around. Now, since it was established 11 years ago, there have been no changes to the Spanish Golden Visa program. Now, when you look at some of the other popular Golden Visa programs, such as Greece and Portugal, during the period of time that they were in effect, around the same amount of time, they changed on a number of different occasions. So, for example, take Portugal as an example. It gradually changed over that sort of 10, 11 years that it was in force. And that would be things such as the amount change. So it started off at 280,000, then the amount increased to, it had to be a 500,000 property investment. Then it changed to certain areas were excluded and certain areas had to be, property had to be bought in certain areas to qualify. Now, nothing's changed over that period of time with Spain, which means it is possible that when the changes are announced, it won't be a total abolishment of property as an option. It might be, for example, that they change just certain elements. Certain areas won't qualify anymore, but other areas will. Or the amounts may change, or the type of property may change. So whether it's commercial property or whether it's residential property. So just be mindful of this. There hasn't been any changes to the Spanish Golden Visa program. Now, in terms of what this means for current holders as well, anybody that goes through the process now and is given the Spanish Golden Visa, please bear in mind as well that under Spanish law, if you are granted the Golden Visa under the terms of buying a property, it can't at a later point be taken away from you. Okay, now this is, as I say, is written into Spanish law. So once you are in on this scheme, you are in. It can't be taken away from you retroactively. Okay, so you can rest assured that for the years coming, you will continue to benefit from the Golden Visa through property. So yeah, be mindful of that. But anybody looking to do something, really, you have to look at time is of the essence, really. You need to be quick moving with this if this is something you're looking to do. Now, the Spain Golden Visa has a number of relatively unique parts to it in terms of things such as having no minimum stay requirement, which means that even if you're not looking to move to Spain for a number of years, you can still actually get in on the Golden Visa scheme by making a qualifying investment, but not actually need to move over here, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But please be aware of that. So as I say, there's been no changes to the Spanish Golden Visa as we know now. We just know that it will change. It could be that things such as commercial property is okay, but residential property is not. All that sort of thing. So we don't know at all. But as it stands at the moment, everything remains the same. And we are, as a company, still taking on applications for the Spanish Golden Visa, and we will get them through for anyone looking to do that. So just in terms of what we do, I don't want to dwell on this too much because there's more important parts to this presentation. I think you'll find more useful. But just a little bit of background in terms of our services that we provide, just so you know. Now, we provide the whole process from start to finish for anybody who's looking for the Spanish Golden Visa. So what that includes is essentially finding the asset. So as I said, we are a wealth management firm, so we're looking at the best possible investments for our clients. We find the assets. We tend to, just so you know, concentrate on commercial property, which I'll come on to. Commercial property is the cheapest way of getting a Spanish Golden Visa because the transfer taxes on commercial property are around 40,000 less than residential property. So unless you're going to move somewhere and you know where you're going to move, commercial assets make often more sense, but I'll come on to that. But we find these assets for our clients. We appoint all the lawyers needed to do the transactions. We will open a bank account in Spain, which is what you need for you, which we can do remotely without you having to come over here. We will get your tax numbers for you, which you need also to purchase a property over here. We provide a full management service for anybody for the property itself. So if it is, whether it's residential or commercial, but for example, if it's a commercial property, you don't have to get involved in it. We would do all of that for you. We would manage it on your behalf. We would even file the tax returns for you on your behalf. So essentially, you don't do anything. We look after that asset, which is in your name, but we look after it for you and you don't get involved. And that would get you the Golden Visa. We also do all the paperwork to get you the golden visa. We will accompany you to do your biometrics, which is the only point you actually need to come over to Spain. It's a point where you do your biometrics tests, which is where you do your fingerprints and your photographs to get the card that you need. And that's later in the process. But apart from that, you don't actually have to come over here to Spain. We can do all this remotely through a power of attorney. And we can even help you later on once you've got your golden visa card. If you then want to change that to a passport at a later date, we can do that for you as well. So there's a list on here of all the things we do. I don't want to go through it in too much detail, but anyone that wants more information, obviously, I'm more than happy to go through that on an individual basis. But as I say, it's the whole process for you. We manage that asset for you. So essentially giving you the golden visa without having all the hassle and the stress of managing a property. We do that for you. So the idea of how long it takes to get the Spanish golden visa in a timeline, which is particularly pertinent now on the fact that we know things will change. But the way it works in a Spanish golden visa, and I will say at this point, compared to some of the other golden visa programs, it is a very quick process. And I'll explain from this slide really what actually happens. So first of all, what we do is when you've actually identified the property that you want. So for example, to our clients, we would show a list of options that you have. Once we've decided on the best option for you, in month one, we sign all the legal package to do with that property, which we can do remotely. We do a power of attorney so that we can actually open you a bank account. We can obtain you an NIE number. Some people watching this may already have an NIE number if they've been over to Spain, but we can obtain that for you if you haven't. We open the bank account as mentioned, and it takes around 3 months for the purchase of a property to go through. Now, it can be quicker than this, and it can be longer than this. It does quite often depend very much on whether things are being sent back in time, how many people are on the application. But roughly speaking, it takes 3 months to get the deeds to a property into your name. Now, once you've got the deeds in your name for the property, we can then essentially apply for the golden visa from the consulate. Okay, so we do that really in month 4. So again, this is being relatively say pessimistic, but realistic about the times is probably the best word to use. But once you've got that deed in your name, we then apply, and it takes basically 21 days or less for the consulate to respond to the application. Once you've got that asset and you qualify, then it will be accepted, provided you, which I'll come on to, you tick the other boxes on the other areas, which I'll come on to. As long as you do, which we would know at the outset, then you'll get a response within 21 days. If they haven't responded within 21 days, it's taken that you have been given the golden visa, okay? Because that's their guideline. So if they take longer than that, you've got the golden visa. So in month 4, as you can see here, you would have the golden visa, which is basically a visa stamped on your passport that allows you to live, work, and study in Spain, and you can travel throughout the Schengen area. And that stamp is normally valid for 1 year, and it depends which way you're doing this, so whether you're going to do it by remotely from where you are, or whether you're coming over to Spain. But I don't want to go too much detail on that. But just to give you an idea, that's 4 months. After that 4 months, there are still other bits we need to do, which again, we do on your behalf. As you can see there, we need to do your biometric appointments normally in month 5. We process the TIE, pick up the TIE number. And then after about month 6 or 7, you then have your residency card, which is what I've got, which has your photograph on it. You've got your fingerprints, everything in the system, and you've then got your card. So once you've got that card, that's then valid for 5 years, and you can renew it every 5 years. Okay, so as I say, it's very quick to get that initial stamp on your passport, which, as I say, is valid for 1 year. It can be 3 years depending on which way you got that. But once you've actually got your card, it's valid for 5-year periods. So it's a quick process. And when you compare it to places such as Portugal, it's a lot quicker. Portugal had a huge backlog, which I suspect Spain, because of the amount of applications it's certainly going to be having moving forward, it's possible that it may start taking a little bit longer because people are really trying to get in now, because obviously these changes have been announced. There's still time to get everything in. People that maybe have been sitting on the fence are now looking to go. So maybe it might take a little bit longer. But as I say, we know how to get everything through quickly for the clients. So let's sort of take a step back from Spain and just talk about citizenship and residency programs and what they essentially mean. Now, the idea of a citizenship or residency program by investment program is essentially saying in return for an investment into a foreign country, in this case, Spain, that could be by real estate, it could be by donation, it could be by investment into a business, by investment into funds or investment into government bonds. But in return for somebody doing that, you are given the right of a resident in that particular country. Now, you get citizenship programs and you get residency programs. A citizenship program is essentially you having a passport for that country. Okay, so you actually have a passport which gives you the rights as if you were essentially born in that country. Now, most European programs aren't citizenship programs. They are ultimately residency programs, which I'll come on to. Citizenship programs tend to be offered by places such as, say, Lucia, say, Kitts, some of the smaller islands outside of the EU. Inside the EU, they tend to be residency programs. You're given the rights of residency, which is the right to work, the right to a pension, the right to healthcare, but it doesn't give you things such as the right to vote, and there are a few other things it won't give you the right to do. But essentially, a residency program still gives you most of the rights of a citizenship program. However, with a residency program, you can change that into citizenship after a certain period of time. So, for example, in Portugal, once you've been a resident and you've got the residency card in Portugal, after 5 years, you can then turn that into a passport. There's a number of things you need to do, things such as a language test. It could be a test on the country itself. And a couple of other things, language tests, as I mentioned, but generally speaking, after 5 years, Portugal, you can change over. With Spain, and I'll come on to this in a bit more detail, it can be as little as 2 years, depending on where you're from when you apply, or it can be 10 years. So it depends, which I'll come on to, really where you're from when you apply. But as I say, these are residency programs that can be changed into citizenship programs. So as mentioned there at the bottom, a residency by investment is basically in exchange for a contribution, you obtain a residency permit that gives you the right to live and work in that particular country. Now, in this case, in Spain, if you have this residency card, then you can come and go from Spain as you wish. You don't have to stay any time at all, or you can stay as long as you like. But what it doesn't do is if you move outside of Spain, say over to Portugal or over to France or wherever you want to go, you're still then restricted by a 90 and 180-day rule that you might be familiar with. So you could stay somewhere 90 days, but then you would have to reset by moving out of that country, for example, back into Spain for 90 days before you can move out. So it doesn't give you the right to stay in every European country indefinitely, but it does in Spain. However, when you change that to a passport, you can then freely move throughout Europe and stay as long as you want in any of the European countries, and you can work and you can live in any of these countries, which is why Portugal has been quite popular, because after 5 years, you can get the passport. As I say, citizenship is when you get the passport, which basically gives you the rights of a full citizen. So everything a citizen can do, you can do. Now, these are the different programs. It's a bit of a busy slide, this, but it is important. Let me just move this over here. But it's important that you understand this, and I'm not going to go through all of it. These are the different programs we do. So on the left-hand side here, you've got citizenship programs. These are the ones that essentially give you the passports. We've got Antigua, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Vanuatu, Malta, and Turkey. And in return for different size donations, and after a certain period of time, you can then get citizenship. But obviously for people looking at Europe, which I imagine the majority of you are, or Spain in particular, that won't really particularly help with the European side of it. On residency programs, the two most popular ones that we do are Portugal and Spain. So last year we were the number one provider of any company for the Portuguese Golden Visa. And I want to talk a little bit about Portugal before moving on to Spain, because this is really important for people that maybe think that Spain might not be right for them. You might find that Portugal is. And I'll explain why now, and then I'll come on to Spain, okay? With Portugal, you can get your passport within 5 years of being a resident. Furthermore, the minimum stay requirements for that period of time are very small. It's essentially 1 week a year for that 5 years. So you can come on holiday to Portugal 1 week every year for that 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, after you've had that residency card, you can change that to becoming a citizen, a passport holder. So you have a Portuguese passport, which means you can live in Spain, you can live in Portugal, you can live anywhere you want. So it's a really good scheme, the Portuguese scheme. The reason it's become less popular is last year, the government in Portugal removed real estate as an option. So you can no longer purchase property in Portugal in order to get your golden visa. You have to invest within a fund, and it had to be a compliant Portuguese fund. Now, this fund itself cannot include property within it because they're trying to move away from property, but it can include companies that own property. So what we've done here at Holborn is we actually have a qualifying fund, which has been going for a long time. It's got a lot of money in it at the moment, and that actually allows you to qualify, and you can do that in Portugal for as little as 325,000 within the fund. Now, this fund itself also has a guaranteed buyback after the 5 years. So you hold it for 5 years in the fund, you're paid your interest up front, and then at the end of the 5 years, you have a guaranteed buyback on that. I don't want to go into too much detail about Portugal, but the reason I mention it is for anyone moving forward who thinks Spain is going to be unobtainable for them, you might think Portugal works. So if you want to speak about Portugal, please feel free to message me and I can go through what our offering is. I will try to send out an email to you as well when we send out this webinar, because we are finding a lot of people looking to Spain and then ultimately they think Portugal is a very good option. So I'll send you how that works for anyone that's registered on here to your email. So keep an eye out for that. But by all means, contact me and I can talk you through that. Now, if we're talking about Spain, well, with Spain, you can actually get your passport, your Spanish passport, within 10 years. So it's double the time of Portugal. And you have to spend 5 years of that 10 years, the last 5 years, spending over 6 months of the year in Spain. So you have to essentially be tax resident. Whilst with Portugal, you don't. You don't need to become tax resident because you don't need to spend, well, only that week a year in Portugal. However, the good part about Spain for some people, and bear in mind, not everybody wants citizenship. You might not, if you're going to live in Spain, move over here. You don't need to necessarily have the passport anyways, just for people maybe that want the more mobility benefits. But if you are from an ex-Spanish colony country, and there are a lot of them on there, so things such as Venezuela, Brazil, and I'll come on to which ones they are, there are a lot. If the main applicant applying is from an ex-Spanish colony country, you can actually get Spanish passport within only 2 years, which is a no-brainer. So if anybody watching this is from that, and I'll come on to what countries there are, really bear that in mind because it really does make a huge difference. But with Spain, the minimum investment is 500,000, and at the moment, that can be invested into property. We don't know how this is going to change moving forward. The likelihood is property will be removed, or certain aspects of property will be removed. But at the moment, it's 500,000 invested into property, whether that's commercial or residential, will qualify. We've actually introduced a scheme where you can actually qualify for as little as 350,000. And we do that by having rental income paid up front. So essentially someone invests 350,000 and they are paid 10 years rental income up front. So that's 150,000 at a rate of 3% per year. Again, I don't want to get confused you too much, but that's paid up front and that gives you the 500,000. So we've done that as a way of letting people get in a lower price point, which is great for some people. Other people it won't work so well for, but it's really, really popular. We do a lot of these for people as well. Now, with the Spanish Golden Visa, you can qualify, as I say, for as little as 350,000 through us. You can also include your children up to the age of 18, and even over the age of 18, you can include your children, providing they are dependents. If they're in full-time education, college, you can include them. You can include your parents as well. If they are 65 years or older and they are dependent, then we can include them on the application. And this is all for one 350,000 or 500,000 investment. We can do the application with everybody on. It's not, you don't need two for the two applicants. You just need one investment if it's done as part of the same application. So it's a really, really good scheme. The Spanish passport is now ranked #2 in the world. It says 5 there, but it's changed as of this year. It's ranked the second strongest passport in the world. Portugal, I think, is third now. And as I say, when you look into Portugal, Portugal is 500,000 minimum, but we've got a scheme where you can do it for 325,000 by having interest paid up front, which I can go in if anyone's interested. Spain, 350,000 by having interest up front, or 500,000 as well, which I'll come a little bit more onto. But they are by far the two most popular schemes for people looking for EU residency and ultimately citizenship. So again, please feel free to have to contact me. We can give you a free consultation and go into this in more detail. So let's talk a little bit about why people want to move to Spain. Now, I'm sure anybody watching this has visited Spain. I've lived here for 6 years. It's a beautiful country. I live down in the south of Spain, so I can drive across to Portugal in around 3.5 hours via Seville. So it's a lovely drive into Portugal. Spain is ranked #1 country for quality of life in the world. It's certainly a very laid back lifestyle here. You've obviously got the weather pretty much all year round, certainly down here in the south of Spain. And anybody who's been here as well, it's lots of public holidays. It's very relaxed here. The people are very nice as well. And just to wake up every morning when the sun's shine really does make a difference for anybody, I think, wherever you live in the world. It's the second most visited country in the world by international tourists. As I say, I suspect most of the people watching this have been to Spain on holiday here. It's actually got the 4th biggest economy in the EU and 14th in the world. I've lived here for quite a long time, as I mentioned, and what you've really noticed over that period of time, how you can really start to see the industry grow here. There are lots of new shops, new businesses opening, whereas maybe sort of 5 or 6 years ago, it was hit by a recession. Obviously, we had COVID, it affected everywhere, but you can really see Spain coming out of this and doing very well. It's voted the 5th best country to live in, the 6th best retirement destination at last year's annual Global Retirement Index. And it's got the 7th best public healthcare system. And I've had to use it. My wife's parents use the healthcare system here, and it is excellent. It is ranked very, very well. And it is a really good healthcare system. So that gives you lots of reasons as to why Spain. But as I say, I'm sure you're watching this because you want to move here yourself. You've obviously been here, you've seen it. Now, the Golden Visa program itself here in Spain, as I mentioned before, it started back in 2013. And since then, there has been it's not 9,000 now, it's well over that. We're looking at about 14 or 15,000 Golden Visa applications approved. And that has raised over 3.5 billion in foreign direct investment. So it's been a real source of investment for Spain, but obviously it's the economical effects that's had in driving up house prices, or potentially driving up house prices, is why the government are looking at it. But what makes the Spanish Golden Visa program so popular is that you don't need to spend any time in Spain to retain your residency. Now, bear in mind, residency and tax residency are different. If you spend over 6 months, this is normally the rules, over 6 months a year in any country, including Spain, you become tax resident. And that's normally a calendar year, January to December, you become tax resident. But in Spain, you can be a resident and have all the rights of a resident without actually being tax resident. So anybody that's maybe thinking of doing this in 2 or 3 years' time, we know it's not going to be around in 2 or 3 years' time. However, you can do it now and make the investment, the 350,000 or the 500,000 investment now. And as long as you hold that asset, you've got the residency card. And ultimately, when you decide to move over here, it doesn't really matter. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time. It makes no difference. You don't need to spend any time here. And this is why it's very popular. And this is why we've got so many people moving forward with this, whereas maybe they were holding back a little bit previously. And any non-EU citizen can apply, so we can take applications from anybody, as long as you've got no criminal record. Now, it's a bit of a grey area because you can have minor offences. That's not going to be turned away, but obviously if there's no major criminal record on that. And as I mentioned before, you can include your spouse, your children, and your parents as all packaged as one part of an application, which we can do for you. So it's not only starting a new life for yourself, but starting a new life for your family as well. And that gives you access to the healthcare, which I'll come on to now. So it essentially gives you the right to live and to work here in Spain, So that, you know, but you as if you were a citizen here, as if you were a passport holder. You can actually freely travel visa-free in all the 26 Schengen countries. So as I'd say, when I go across to Portugal, there isn't actually a border there. There is a border, obviously, but there's no border control. So there's a bit of a grey area with the 90 and 180-day rule, because you don't get your passport stamped when you go across the border anyway. So it's very difficult for people to tell where you're actually spending time. But strictly, the rule is if you leave Spain, you can live and work in Spain, you can stay here as long as you want. But when you move across, say, to Portugal, you've got to do 90 days and then move back out again to reset the clock. But you don't need any visas. You can freely travel across the borders. You can actually establish a business in any of the Schengen countries. There is a 5-year tax exemption for expats. We're not specifically tax advisors. We have an in-house tax team that can help you if you are using us for the golden visa. But there is a called the Beckham's Law, preferential tax treatment that you can get here in Spain as well. And you've got access to the free healthcare and also the pension here in Spain. So for anybody looking to retire, anybody looking to live, the golden visa is the best one. There are alternative visas, things such as the non-lucrative visa, but you can't work if you've got that type of visa, and you need to show that you've got a minimum amount of income coming in every year. With a golden visa, quite simply, all you need is that qualifying asset, which is, as it stands at the moment, property. So just a little bit about the facts and the myths of the Spanish golden visa. Now, I've covered a lot of this. Let me just go back. So the myth, you have to spend time in Spain to maintain residency. Well, as I said, there's no visit nor minimum stay requirements in Spain. Once you've got your residency card, you don't need to spend any time in here until a point that you want to come over here and live. Only residential real estate qualifies. No, any type of real estate. So that can be commercial, residential. You can even buy a parking space and it would qualify. It's just got to be real estate. As I mentioned before, as a company, if we put our company head on, our investment head on, commercial real estate is the most practical to do, because in Spain, when you buy a property, you can be hit quite heavily on taxes, things such as transfer taxes. And depending on the area that you're buying in, these can be anywhere between 8.5% to 11% on a residential transaction. However, on commercial, it's a lot less, typically around, depending on where we look. We tend to concentrate in Barcelona and Madrid because obviously that's a very safe area in terms of investments. There's some really good investments there. And typically that's around 1 to 1.5% you pay there, which, if you look at a 500,000 investment, will actually save you around 40,000 euros in transfer taxes. So if you're not thinking of moving to live somewhere straight away, and you don't know where you're going to want to live, then commercial real estate makes more sense because you pay far less in setting it up. And then when you're at a point, which we can manage for you, when you're at a point you don't want it anymore and you want to buy residential, you can sell the commercial asset and you can then purchase residential. And as long as that's continuous ownership of the property over 500,000, then you'd continue to qualify for the Spanish golden visa. Next myth is you have to buy one property of at least 500,000. That's not true. You can invest in as many properties as you like, providing they total 500,000. So you can have 2 properties, 250,000, or 3 properties, 200,000 to give you 6. As long as it goes over the 500,000, you will qualify. Bear in mind, if anyone's watching this and you already own a Spanish property, it will only qualify if it was bought after 2013. And I think the date's in September. You'd have to, I can find out for people, but bear in mind, it would only qualify if you purchased it after that date, which is when they introduced the Spanish golden visa. Next ones, there are limitations in where you can invest. No, you can invest anywhere. So that's Balearic, the Canary Islands, it's mainland Spain. As I say, we concentrate on Madrid and Barcelona because that's where the best investment opportunities are and the best rental income. The next one, the process is long and vague. No, it's actually the fastest amongst all the EU programs. And as long as you have that holding asset, as long as you've got the deeds and they're valued at 500,000, you can get your residency within 21 days of us submitting that on your behalf. So it's very quick. Also, people say is the Spanish program is expensive. It's not. Once you've got that holding asset for the 500,000 that qualifies you for the golden visa, when you come to renew it, it's really not very expensive at all. So for example, your TIE, your NIE, your tax number costs 73 euros to get. When you come to renewal at the end of the 5 years, you're looking at costs in the hundreds in terms of euros, whilst other programs such as Portugal can be in the thousands. So it's a lot cheaper in the Spanish program as well. And the next one is I have to live in Spain for 10 years to qualify for citizenship. If you remember what I said, citizenship is the Spanish passport. That's not true. If you are from a former colony, a former Spanish colony, you can get your citizenship in 2 years. And I urge you, if you're watching this and you are from an ex-Spanish colony, you really need to think about this, because you could have a Spanish passport, the second strongest passport in the world, within 2 years. You would have to live over here for more than 6 months of those 2 years, but it would give you the Spanish citizenship. And as to what those countries are, okay, so this is a Spanish passport. So for people such as myself, I'm from the UK, people from the USA and say Canada, places like that, well, you'd have to wait 10 years to get your passport, but you would be a resident, so you still have all the benefits, but 10 years before you can convert that to a passport. But if you are an ex-Spanish colony, and these are the ex-Spanish colonies, then you can do it within 2 years. So Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, Uruguay, and Venezuela. If any of them, if the main applicant on the golden visa that we do, if they're from them countries, you can get the passport within 2 years. In addition, Andorra and Portugal, but it would be less likely you'd really want the Spanish passport because you'd already have an EU passport anyway. And the requirements to convert it over to citizenship, to get your passport, is you have to do a basic language level test. You have to do a cultural exam, again, relatively simple. And you have to live in Spain for 2 years, for over 6 months, as I mentioned before, if you're ex-Spanish colony, or 5 years if you are from another country that's not an ex-Spanish colony. And as I said, it says second best passport in the world. It's ranked as of this year. And you will have traveled to 190 countries visa-free. And you can live and work anywhere in the EU. I remind you again what I said about Portugal. If you are really looking for an EU passport, and you're not ex-Spanish colony, and you want that passport as soon as possible, Portugal is the best option, because you can do that within 5 years by not even living in Portugal, by just having the asset, which we can help with. There's some very good schemes with Portugal that we do as well through a qualifying fund with guarantees written into it, so there's no risk to that as well. So again, contact me if that's of interest and you want more information, but I will send that out by email as well. Now, in terms of Spain, the options to get you the golden visa as it stands today, which can change. Number one, real estate. This is it. 500,000 euros into real estate will get you the golden visa. As I say, that can be commercial, it can be residential, any type of real estate. We can do it for as little as 350,000, but it's still a 500,000 investment. That's just because we're paying money up front to you to help you get it for a lower price. You can do equity in a business, which is 1 million euros. As you can imagine, that's slightly less popular. It's out of a lot of people's reach. Bank deposit account or investment fund is 1 million euros, or government bonds are 2 million euros. So the vast majority of all transactions to get the golden visa are through real estate. And when the government finally announce what the new changes are going to be, the likelihood is that real estate will change. Whether the others do, we don't know. But what I do know is real estate tends to be the option that most people will go for. Now, these are the options that we do. And I want to talk you through this. It's really important just to make sure you understand. It looks a bit confusing when you look at this, but just to sort of break this down. The options that you have, number one here, commercial asset. So this is what we concentrate on for the majority of our clients. Unless you know where you want to live in Spain and you're going to move directly into the property that you love, that's 500,000 or more, that's fine. You would go for the residential. But if you don't know where you want to live, then commercial assets make more financial sense, which I'll come on to. The other option, so these commercial assets that we do, these are for 500,000 or above, okay? 500,000 is a minimum. It is getting difficult to find commercial assets at 500,000 because, as you can imagine, the 500,000 price point is become a popular price point to give people the golden visa. But we can look at commercial assets for 500,000. The rental yield on these are normally between 4 and 6%, and we do a full management service on this. So we can actually manage that asset for you, and you will get a passive income of anywhere between 4 and 6% coming in. Now, the advantage of this commercial asset, so this is option one I'm looking at here, is the transfer taxes are between 1.5% and 2.5%. So they're a lot less than residential, which I'll come on to. So residential, as I mentioned before, if you can see down here, point number one, is 8 to 11.5%. So it's 40,000 euros more than a commercial on a 500,000 investment. So it makes sense from a taxation point of view, from an initial outlay, to look at commercial. Long-term, with commercial assets, they have long-term leases, and the tenants of that asset will cover most of the expenses. So unlike a residential asset, it's covered by the tenants. So it's far less ongoing costs for people. As I say, when we do it for our clients, we manage these assets for them, so they don't need to get involved. We do that whole process for them. Now, the other option we do for commercial is the 350,000 sale and leaseback option. Now, the idea of this is it's a turnkey solution. So basically, it's something that the client does not get involved in. We essentially purchase an asset on their behalf, and this is for 350,000. We effectively pay the rental income up front, which is the equivalent of 3% per annum for 10 years. So that's 10 years. That takes you up to when you can qualify for the passport. That 3% upfront for 10 years will give you 150,000. So 150,000 with the 350,000 from the client will essentially give you a 500,000 investment, which will qualify. The asset itself is worth 500,000, but you've been paid the rental income up front, and that's for 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, you can, which I'll come on to, there's a number of options you have, one of which is to then start to get an income from it. There's also a guaranteed buyback on that as well, which I'll come on to, which is really important to eliminate the risk. But that is probably the most popular route. There is also another route that we introduced about a month ago, where it's again a 350,000 option, which is actually an investment into there's a large hotel chain here in Spain called the Soho Boutique Hotels. They've got 28 hotels all over Spain. They're building a new one in Madrid, just in the commercial center in Madrid, and they are essentially funding it through private investors. So it's the same principle with this. You can invest 350,000. The hotel will pay 150,000, essentially rental income up front, which gives you the 500,000, and they offer a guaranteed buyback in 10 years' time of 500,000. So at the outset, you'll get in 10 years' time, you'll get 500,000 back. It's written into the contract, and your initial outlay is 350,000 plus the cost to set it up. But that's a newer option. So this is not on the slide. This 350,000 that I'm talking about on here is our commercial option. So this is normally in Madrid or Barcelona. It can be a cafe, it could be a restaurant, it could be a bar, it could be an office space. We source these for our clients. And as I say, you get paid the rental income up front. In this middle option, all taxes are paid on behalf of the client. You don't pay any taxes yourself. That is filed and paid on your behalf. It doesn't matter whether the property is empty or not. It's not your concern. That's the concern of the management team, the management company. Essentially, it's just a holding asset that gives you the golden visa. And at the end of the 10 years, you then have the exit options, which I'll come on to. The other option we can do for clients is residential, for the purchase of a second home. Typically, if you're not going to live in there, you're going to pay around 40,000 more in terms of residential taxes, and your average rental yield is normally around 2 or 3%. So it's less than the commercial option, quite considerably less as well. And your minimum outlay is 500,000. The reason as well, as someone pointed this out to me, and you'll know this if you've lived in Spain or aware of Spain itself, you have to be a little bit careful on second properties in Spain as well because of the squatters' rights over in Spain. The law over here does favour squatters, so it's very hard to get people out once they're in. So not as a scare story, but it's another reason I know a few people have said to me they wouldn't consider residential. To be honest, I'd be more concerned about the taxes, but that is another factor. With commercial assets, that's not the case. It's not something you'd worry about. So just looking at point 2 and 3 on here. So a commercial property will have around double the rental yield on a 500,000 property than a residential property. So straight away, that is a better investment. So what we say to people is if you don't know where you want to live in Spain, if you've got a commercial asset that's paying you between 4 and 6% and you're getting that income coming in, whilst you decide where you want to live in the country, you've got a high rental yield, a yield coming in for the rental yield, sorry, yeah. And you can use that money to rent somewhere over here until you decide where you want to settle down. And then when you've decided, you can sell the commercial property, buy the, which we would do for you. You can then buy the residential asset. It makes financial sense. So you're not paying this extra 40,000, then selling it a year later when you've decided where you want to move, paying another 40,000. It makes more financial sense not to do that. With other countries, that's not the case. Greece and Portugal, typical property purchase was cheaper residential property purchase, but with Spain, you've got to be very careful on the taxation of it. Commercial is well fully managed as well. So we see it as being a compliance asset. It gives you the golden visa. You can choose the asset yourself, but we manage it on your behalf. And we do the full management package, as I said before. You've got to look at it as well. And again, this is me putting my wealth management hat on. It's a rational event. You need to think, well, think about this logically. What is the best option? Don't make an emotional decision. People do like to buy a property that they can see, that they can live in. But you've got to think, that's great if you know you're going to sort of settle down in that property. But actually, if you don't know that, then you want to be looking at a more rational decision, which is where commercial comes in. Just to give you a bit more detail about the 350,000 sell-leaseback option, because as I say, this is by far the most popular option that we do. As I say, you need a 500,000 investment to qualify. We look at 500,000 commercial investments in Barcelona or Madrid. That's the ones we concentrate on. These can be anything from catering, retail, office, bars, all that sort of thing. That's what we would tend to concentrate on. If anyone does that option, we will immediately pay 3% rental yield up front. And as you would notice, 3% is less than what you normally expect, which would be 4 or 6%. But the reason for that is that we're taking all the risks. So essentially, whether it's unoccupied or not, it's not your concern. All the tax is paid on your behalf to do with the property tax is paid on your behalf. You have no ongoing costs. You're paid 150,000 up front. That gives you the 500,000. Your total investment is 350,000 plus the costs of, solicitors, the initial transfer taxes, that sort of thing. Depending on how many applicants, it can be around 360, 370. That's all in, that's everything. You get that 150,000 up front, and that will then give you an asset worth 500,000 that you've paid 350,000 for. And then you get your residency. Once you've got that, you would get your golden visa, your Spanish residency within 21 days once the deeds are done as well. Now, in terms of the 350,000, there are a number of exits for this. Now, I would say, for being absolutely honest with this, for anybody looking at this option, it really suits people that are taking a longer term view, because after it's really the idea is a 10-year, you pay 10-year rental income, 10 years rental income up front. But at the end of the 10 years, you actually have 3 options. The first one is you can actually exercise a guaranteed buyback of 350,000, which is the amount that you actually paid initially. Now, if you look at that investment, it's not the greatest investment because you paid 350,000 10 years ago. You're guaranteed to get 350,000 back. But what it does do is it eliminates any risk if there was any massive disasters in the housing market. It's probably unlikely over the period of 10 years that, housing prices or commercial asset prices will go down. But this protects your money, the money you've invested, by writing in the 350,000 guaranteed buyback. But what most people will do is option 2. After 10 years, you sell it at the open market at the going rate. Now, if you think the asset was originally worth 500,000 now, and it is in Madrid or Barcelona, which we've done the due diligence, we're looking at the best assets available. Obviously, in 10 years' time, you would expect it to be worth considerably more than 500,000 if you look at what happens normally with commercial prices. You've got the guaranteed buyback if not, but otherwise you can sell it at the open market. After 10 years, you can get the passport, so you don't need the asset anymore, so you could sell that asset. But you also have option 3, where if you wanted to, and you've got a great asset that's paying a high rental yield, it could be 5 or 6% in the center of Barcelona, and it's doing fantastically well. You might just want to keep it as an asset yourself, and that income then will start to be paid for you, because obviously you paid off the 10-year rental income that was paid up front. Now, if you want to get out before the end of 10 years, you can do. After year 5, you can exercise the guaranteed buyback, but it's because you've been paid that rental income up front. In year 5, the guaranteed buyback's 175,000, year 6, 210,000, year 7, 245,000, and so on until year 10 is 350,000. So you can get out after year 5, but I think the best value for this really comes when you hold it for the 10 years. It really suits somebody who just wants to have an asset they can completely forget about, put it to the side, give you the golden visa, and know that there's no danger of you losing your money because you've got a guaranteed buyback. As I mentioned, and I mentioned before, I will just say at this point as well, there is a hotel option that we introduced around, well, it's about 2 months ago now, actually. Similar principle where somebody invests 350,000, they're paid 150,000 up front, but this actually goes towards an investment into a hotel of a hotel chain. The money is secured against the hotels to 28 hotels in the Soho boutique hotel chain. So there's no danger of if the hotel they're building has any issues, it's not just secured against that, it's secured against the 28 hotels they own. So it really minimizes any risk. You can't sell it to the open market at the end of 10 years on the hotel. There is only one option and one option alone. The hotel wants it back, and they write into the contract that they will buy it back off you for 500,000. So you know what you're going to get in 10 years' time. So it works really well for somebody who just kind of wants almost like a pension scheme or an investment scheme where you put your money, it gives you the golden visa, and in 10 years' time, you know you're going to make that sort of steady return over that period of time with no worry about what the market value is at the end of the time. So again, could be a good option for some people, but these are two popular options. Or quite simply, your other option is that you go for a straightforward 500,000 commercial option. Is an example here of what we did. This was 600,000 because we can do any amounts up to into the millions if people want to invest more. The more you invest, the higher the return you get. This was a restaurant cafe that was called Bipolar. The rent was €3,050, fully licensed property in Barcelona. The advantage with the 500,000 plus options is that you can sell them at any time. I mean, essentially, you get the rent coming in, and when you're at a point you want to sell it, whether that's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and buy a residential, you can do that. So this option has the most flexibility. The only issue we're having with this at the moment, as I said before, to find one exactly 500,000 is becoming slightly more difficult because that's the price point everyone's buying at. And we really do look at what are the best investments. We're not trying to sell something for 400,000 and make it 500,000 to qualify. We want it to be really good investment for 500,000 or above. And this is an example of one we did. So they are the options that we have. I am conscious now we've hit the hour mark. So I'm just looking at a question that's come up here. Can you briefly explain the details of making a €350,000 investment in real estate instead of 500? Okay, so I think I've answered that. So this only applies to commercial, not for residential. Residential, it has to be a straightforward 500,000. But we did the 350,000 option really because it was a way, in a lot of respects, to help people getting in at a lower entry point. Because Portugal was always 280,000, which was really low, but that then changed to 500,000. And we had so many people wanting to move to Spain and not Portugal that we had to find a way of doing that was obviously fully compliant, that was, tick the boxes of what the Spanish authorities wanted. So we've done this scheme, whereas either the hotel or the commercial option, you can do for 350,000. You can include all your families on it as well. So your parents, depending on the ages, your children, as many people on the application, and we can do that for you. But as I say, if you want more details of that, feel free to put yourself in. You've got the QR code there as well, so you can put yourself into my diary, or just simply email me, and we can book you in if the time's not available in my diary, as I am here in Spain, so my diary is open on Spanish time. We did have a few questions come in, which I will briefly go through, but we are kind of out of time. There were a few tax questions. Now, we're not specifically tax advisors, so we can put you in contact with someone that can give you tax advice if you want to use us and you want to go ahead and use our services, and obviously we can do that. So will any investment in Spain provide a gold visa, not just real estate purchase? Yes, so any type of real estate, any type of anything to do with property can do. But if you're going to go outside of property into government bonds, then it's got to be 1 million or 2 million for government bonds, 1 million for funds. So property, obviously, at the moment is the best route in, or certainly the cheapest route in. Does an investment in real estate still offer a chance at residency? As it stands now, yes, it does. So it does offer it, but obviously we don't know how that will change moving forward, and what impact the latest announcements has on the future of the golden visa. Well, we're just waiting to hear what happens. We're trying to keep everybody updated, but we don't know what the changes are going to be. Got someone here. We bought residential property under a company for 410K and buying another one for 4. Would we be eligible for the golden visa? Ooh, well, we'd have to ask the team on that because normally it has to be in a person's name. So I would say if it's under a company, I have asked this before and I'm pretty sure the answer is no. It has to be in an individual name, not a company name. But I can double check that for you. I don't want to tell you the wrong information, but I know someone's asked this before and it came back really with the answer they didn't want. It has to be in somebody's name. You'll have a main applicant and it will be in their name. They can then tag other people. But if it's a company, that's different because it's not an individual's name. So I think that probably wouldn't be the case, but I can certainly look into that for you. Right, we've run over by 5 minutes, so I do have to call it a day here. What I will do, though, is I will get anyone interested in Portugal golden visa. I'm only mentioning that because we're just having a lot of interest. I'll send some information. It'll probably be tomorrow out if I can on that, but feel free to ask me for an appointment on that because I can speak to you about the Spanish and the Portuguese one. Feel free to drop me an email if you want me to book yourself, if you want me to book you in. Time is not available. You've got my WhatsApp number there, and you can also use that QR code. So I hope you found it useful. We still have time for anyone that's interested, but obviously just be mindful of we're really waiting an announcement any day. And the property as an investment for a golden visa is such a good route because everyone likes property as an investment. You're very safe with property, but obviously I think all these golden visa schemes are going to start to see sort of slow withdrawal. So whilst you can get in, it's worth doing because, as I say, it can't be taken away from you retrospectively once you're in, and we know that with Portugal as well. So anyone that's interested, give me a shout, and hopefully you found it useful. And I will send a copy of this out probably tomorrow once we've got it back from our IT team. And yeah, thanks very much for joining me today, and I wish you a very good evening or day wherever you are.